Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
Good Sunday afternoon. I am Robyn Flynn, and welcome to Under One Roof on CJAD 800. We are demystifying home ownership one episode at a time. Thrilled to be with you. Thrilled to be back on CJAD 800, the best radio station in the city, if I do say so myself. And I am super excited to be with this amazing team of people. I am looking right at Martin Spalding, longtime friend, longtime colleague. Happy to be with you again.
Robyn, this is a full circle moment for me. I'm so happy to be here with obviously LJ and Fred.
Yeah, so we've got Fred Pichette of Fred and Martin Mortgages. That's the other half of Martin and Fred. So how's it going, Fred? Great to have you here.
Thank you, Robyn. Very well. I'm excited to be part of the show. I think there's a lot of good information to be thrown to the listener, the CGD listeners, and I'm happy to be with LJ and Martin as well.
Awesome.
We try to demystify a bit what home ownership is all about.
Exactly. LJ Aguinaga from LJ Realties. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Really excited to be here. Can't wait to dive right in.
So we have absolutely everything that you need covered in this little group, this tandem here. We've got the mortgage experts and we've got the real estate expert, which pretty much covers everything that has to do with property and home ownership, condos, houses, whatever you're looking at, even rental. We're going to tackle the rental market as well here in Montreal. So we're going to cover pretty much everything that has to do with living somewhere, because that's something that really unites us all, right? Ideally, everybody has a roof over their head. That is something that we all strive for. So I think it's something that everybody can really relate to and that we all have in common. To kick things off, every week we are going to have a trivia question of the week, and we want you to be engaged. Text us at 514-800. You can also call us at 790-0800 if you think you know the answer. In the mortgage industry, what is the prime rate commonly used for? That is our question for this week. We will get to the answer a little bit later on if you don't know. But again, in the mortgage industry, what is the prime rate commonly used for? If you think you know, you can text us at 514-800. But to kick things off, what is in the news this week? The big announcement from the Bank of Canada. Everybody was paying attention. I know I was. I'm on a variable rate mortgage, so I've been paying very close attention to those interest rate announcements. So let's start with what the Bank of Canada had to say. Do you want to kick it off, Fred?
I could kick it off. I could start that off. Actually, this week, last Wednesday, it wasn't a mystery when the Bank of Canada announced it. It was expected because the inflation still remains high in December. Like basically, the Bank of Canada decided to maintain their overnight rates. When the people ask what is the overnight rates, is actually how to determine what will be the variable rate for your loan, which is very important to understand that if you're carrying a variable rate, you're actually having a discount from the prime rate of Canada, and all banks and major lender follow most of the time what's the Bank of Canada overnight rate tells us.
Perfect.
It's funny because you know what? If you go back 3 or 4 years ago, it was a Bank of Canada announcement. Did it take up so much bandwidth? Did it get as much visibility as it's getting today? And, there'll be about 7 or 8 occasions this year where the Bank of Canada will announce whether they're holding firm or if they're going to reduce or they're going to increase. And the focus on these announcements now are unbelievable. And the amount of literature that is published subsequent to an announcement is mind-boggling. But the thing that really always gets me is it's such an important thing that you read all the literature post-announcement, and you sit there, and every article that you read always starts, I don't have a crystal ball, but. And where does that leave the listener? Where does that leave the mortgage holder? Where does that leave that person who's sitting on the sidelines going, should I get into the housing market? Should I hold firm? What am I going to do? And what boggles my mind is that every article that I read this week, subsequent to the announcement, was, I don't have a crystal ball, but.
And it's funny because all the economists, all the experts for the past year and a half have been saying it's going to come down. It's going to come down. And when it's going to come down just keeps getting pushed. It's going to come down 2023 Q4. You'll see. Okay, 2023 Q4, 2024 Q1 for sure. You're going to, and they're like, oh, inflation's not coming down.
Well, they keep moving the goalpost. So everybody's sitting there like, in the fall, everyone was going, by December. And then now it was, when we got into the new year, it was April. Yeah. And now it's being moved into July. And now they're talking late third quarter. So what they're really telling us is they don't know.
Exactly. And I'm starting to regret signing a variable rate mortgage right now. I was told that, it's going to be rock and roll for a little bit. You're going to be going up, but it will come down and it'll save you money long term. LJ, I'm starting to think like maybe it's not going to save me money long term.
So I'll be quite honest. I'm on a variable rate mortgage as well, right? So I've been on that ride with you. And historically speaking, the variable does end up being less expensive over the long run. Now, obviously, if you sign kind of sometime at the end of 2021 or 2022, you've been on this roller coaster. We've been on it together, obviously. That increase of 5% over the course of about 14, 15 months definitely hit most people hard. And looking back, obviously, we'd say, oh, that was the wrong decision. Mortgages were at about 2.5%. We should have gone down that fixed rate road, especially for principal residents. I do believe we're going to come back down. I do believe we're kind of seeing the peak of this roller coaster, if you will. And unfortunately, we're going to have to sit tight for a little bit longer due to inflation that isn't under control. But
I got a question for LJ. Sorry, I just raised my hand. So we're getting our chemistry down. So exactly. I just raised my hand. I was going to ask you a question, but finish there.
On its way down, obviously, we're going to be a lot more excited about where we're heading and where it's coming. And over the 5-year term, I think it will be interesting to kind of compare what we could have done from one side, where we are today, and ultimately how this would have played out in different scenarios. So, Martin.
Well, I think Fred's just raised his hand because I think he's thinking the same thing as I am. Because we're recommending right now that if you're entering the market right now, if you feel that the mortgage rates are going to go down, then sign a variable rate. And when the rates come down to whatever your sweet spot is,
lock it in.
Then lock it in.
Yeah, but again, the people sometimes have short memories, but it's the first time in the history in the last 20 years that the variable is over the fixed rate. Normally, if you had a variable rate, you always pay less than a fixed rate, which is obviously the last 2 years was hard for people who carry variable rate and even line of credit because we had, many increases. But again, I'm a big believer that sooner or later it's going to come down, which is
has to.
What Martin says right now, going variable for a short period of time probably give you the leverage to fix a good fixed rate later on. And that's a good strategy,
There are two schools, though, right? There are some people that want to know exactly what they're going to pay on a monthly basis. And there are other people that are willing to call it an educated gamble. Because if you read the literature, the interest rates are going to go down. So if you're willing to gamble a little bit, sign for a variable rate, short term, and lock it in later.
I'm not a very good gambler. I went to Vegas. I won $100. I cashed out and I was done. So
I'm a winner.
I'm a winner.
You're a winner.
I like to play cautious. We've kind of referenced the real estate market in particular. So, let's dive into it. Everything feels like it's kind of in a state of limbo right now. Buyers are waiting to see if that rate is going to come down. House prices have not come down yet. So if interest rates actually start to drop, what's going to happen? Is it going to be, 2020 all over again? So LJ, you're the expert here. What can Montrealers expect right now?
So look, because the interest rates stayed where they are right now, until we see inflation go below 3%, I don't think that we're going to see the Bank of Canada make any significant change to interest rates. Now, the latest expectation is for them to start lowering it in June. Again, this changes every day, but that's what I have in terms of information today. If we look at the Q4 stats from 2023, sales were down 3% and listings were up 12%. In other words, less properties were sold and more properties hit the market compared to Q4 2022. Finally, after a few crazy years, we saw the negotiating power start to shift in the favor of buyers. In the Greater Montreal area, we saw prices fall down in all three categories over the last 12 months. Single-family homes were down 2%, condos were down 1%, and multiplexes were up to 4 units, were down 3%. Not huge changes, but it reflects that the pressure that high interest rates have put on the market. Now, some will say, I knew a crash was coming, but in reality, we had a small correction that lasted maybe 3 to 6 months. If we look at the small change in pricing over the course of the entire year, it really wasn't that impactful. Now, if we do take a step back and look at prices over the last 5 years, homes are up 68%, condos are up 53%, and multiplexes up to 4 units are up 40%. These are some pretty stellar annualized returns, and if you've been investing to keep a roof over your head, you're pretty happy with where you're at today.
That's a pretty solid assessment. We're going to keep talking about this. We're going to keep talking about how inflation is continuing to impact interest rates. Coming up, we're going to hear from Francis Cordolino from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. He's the guy you want to talk to right now.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
This is your Lingo Lexicon on Under One Roof MTL. Amortization, the gradual repayment of a loan through scheduled payments, which include both principal and interest. What does this actually look like in real life? Think mortgage terms. How long of a period of time will you actually take to pay off the loan? Is it a 20-year period, 25, 30? That term is your amortization. This has been Lingo Lexicon.
If you've been holding your breath waiting to see what the Bank of Canada does with interest rates in 2024, you're not alone. Whether your fixed rate mortgage is up for renewal this year or you're currently on a variable rate, everyone and their grandmother is paying close attention right now to what the Bank of Canada is going to do. But what sort of impact is this having on the real estate market, both across Canada and right here in Montreal? Francis Cordolino is Senior Specialist Market Insights for Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, aka the CMHC, and he joins us now. Hey, Francis, how are you?
Good, and you?
Great. Thank you for joining us today. So this week we had a big announcement for the Bank of Canada. They announced earlier this week that they are holding the key interest rate. So what does this mean for the Canadian housing market?
So what we're looking at the moment is sales are quite low in major centers on the resale market. For new home construction, it depends on the provinces. It was quite slow in Quebec in 2023. In Vancouver, Toronto, or BC and Ontario, there was a lot of housing starts. Probably this could be explained by the fact that they built somewhat a bit different than in Montreal or in Quebec. So those big high-rise structures takes maybe 4 or 5 years to build. So they were planned for a long time. So they're not very, let's say, they don't having the impact of the high interest rate that we have right now. I always give the example that in Toronto, for example, a condo structure that is being built this year or in 2023, maybe the pre-sale happened maybe 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago when the market was stronger. So, but the latest data that we got for Toronto and Ontario seems to show that the market was losing momentum as well in the new home construction segment. So it's going to be to follow in the next few months.
I've seen buyers and sellers sit on the sidelines for the last few months, waiting for interest rates to start dropping before jumping back into the market. When do you expect the Bank of Canada will actually start cutting interest rates?
So that's a really good question. I think that everybody would like to have the answer on this one. So there's a lot of forecasters, and when you look at the evolution of those forecasts across maybe the last 1 or 2 years, it's always changing. So they were forecasting maybe it would be at 4.5% and then decreasing, then it went to 5%. And then there would be a decrease in the early 2024, and when it was the spring 2024 or the summer 2024. So it's always changing. So I think that what could happen is when we are in 2024, in the spring, summer, so the longer we wait, the longer the probability of having a rate decrease will increase. So this is the first thing. So, but the exact moment, it's hard to say for the moment. For sure, when rate starts to decrease, what we could see is the first impact would be on the resale market. So people maybe coming back to the market, buying a condo, a single family home, because it's a bit less expensive to buy one. But for the housing starts, it would take probably a bit more time because, when you are trying to build a new condo structure or a rental structure, but you need to do your market study. You need to maybe start to sell those pre-construction condo. You need to pre-lease. You need to go to the municipality to get the permits and get all the approvals. So it takes a bit more time. So the first impact should be on the sales. And probably after a couple of months, we should see housing starts increasing. But it's going to take, once again, a little time before we're seeing an increase in all the housing markets.
Listen, you kind of answered a bit my next question, but
maybe you could add to that. But what do you think is going to happen when the rate actually drop in the real estate market in Montreal?
The first impact, and we often see that is on the resale market. So people now are waiting. I think that's a good point that was said earlier. People are waiting, and even sellers are waiting. So there's not a lot of sales going on, and there's not a lot of new listings coming to the market. So and that's the reason that often we're going to say that it's still a seller's market, even if sales are down. But the thing is that there's nothing going on. So this is why the market is still being categorized as a seller's market. But if the rate can start to decrease in the near future, people will probably get back into the market. They know they need to have also the expectations that rates won't increase again. So they need that confidence back. So if you look at the data on consumer confidence at the moment, there's every month, basically, there's a survey where consumers across Canada are being asked, is it a good time to make a major purchase like a home or a car? And when you look at that, at the answers in the last few months, it's quite low. Not a lot of people have confidence in the market right now to make that major purchase like buying a home. So when that confidence comes back and that rate starts to decrease, we could see people coming back to the resale market and buy those new homes. And eventually as well, housing should start to increase.
Are you afraid of maybe a bidding war if the rate drops, and that, you see what happened during the pandemic? It probably is not going to hit that level, but what's your take on this?
Yeah, it will depend on the drop. For the moment, I would say the forecasts are that the decrease will be quite small and gradual over time. So that probability of a lot of people entering the market at the same time is maybe minimal at this time. And as well, I think when you look at the data, and that's interesting, when you look at the data on sales, it started, actually the momentum of sales or the rhythm of sales started to decrease way before the increase in interest rates. So what happened is that during the pandemic, as we were saying, there was a lot of people in the market. So we saw a lot of transaction from mid-2020 to the end of 2020 or beginning of 2021. But even at the beginning of 2021, prices were so expensive on the market and all those overbidding wars. Actually, even at the beginning of 2021, we're looking at the rhythm of sales in Montreal and Quebec and a bit elsewhere, and we could see those sales starting to the rhythm of sales starting to decrease. And when the interest rates happened in 2022, it also, I would say, fueled that decrease that we already have in the rhythm of sales on that momentum on the market. So probably once again, with the high level of prices that we have at this moment, even the mortgage rates decrease a little bit, it's still expensive, and it's still difficult for first-time home buyers to buy this new condo or to buy this single-family home, the resale market. So we should expect maybe a slower recovery at the moment.
So if I understand properly, if rates go down, we feel that there's a pent-up demand and that a lot of people will be entering the market. But I was listening to the news this morning, and they were stating that the Quebec population is now fringing on 9 million people. So we know that there's a housing crisis across the country. Do you feel that the provincial and federal governments are doing enough to address the housing crisis? And are they greenlighting enough new construction to address a significant population growth, not only in Quebec, but across the country?
Yeah, really good question. So I would say for that we know that we have a supply shortage on the market in the Quebec and Montreal and across the country. And I think that every level of governments can do better, basically. And housing is quite complex. It involves the federal government through some programs, the provincial government through some programs and regulation, and also the municipalities. So everybody needs to work together to help put more supply on the market. And the thing is with that population growth as well is that when you look at the data, most of them are non-permanent residents, so temporary workers, students from abroad, and also asylum seekers, and also immigrants. So when you look at the data, 90% of non-permanent residents are on the rental market. And for immigrants that arrived the last 5 years, it's 75%, and that's for Montreal data. And for Toronto, Vancouver, it's I think 90% as well for non-permanent residents, and maybe 67% for recent immigrants. So a lot of the pressure of those people coming from abroad are going to the rental market. So we need more supply as well on the rental market. And there's a lot of programs trying to help to build more structures. Municipalities also can help. I know that there are a lot of municipalities right now looking at ways to improve the efficiency to deliver permits to help in the approval process because it could be quite complex for builders. So there's a lot of different steps that can be taken, but once again, it's going to take a lot of efforts across the board.
Do you mind if I ask just a follow-up question? Because in the literature that I was looking at this week, one of the number one things that investors are looking at right now are rental properties. And corporate investors are buying up a lot of rental properties. What's that going to mean for renters and rental prices?
The thing is that all those new rental structure, private rental structures, construction costs are high. There's a labor shortage. There's often fees for municipalities across the country. So when you look at a new rental building, the rents are going to be way more expensive than the building that was maybe built in the 70s and the 80s. So we need also to build maybe more affordable supply through some program or social housing that can help people that will never be able to afford the market price for rental structures. So when you look at the literature, there is no literature in Canada on that topic for the moment, but if you look at literature in the United States or even Finland, if you put more supply on the market, even if it's more expensive, it's going to help the market in the medium and long term. Because, for example, you put a new rental structure on the market, there's somebody with mid to high income, is going to move to that new rental structure, and his apartment will become available. His apartment was a bit less expensive, so people can move in, and that apartment that was occupied by maybe that person that moved was also cheaper. Another person will move in, etc., etc. So you have this, I would say, this snowball effect that people moving into more expensive structures, and you have more available structure units in the maybe structures that are a bit less expensive. So in the long term, it's going to help. So basically, it's better to put supply than not to put supply on the market. But once again, we need to take into account that some households never will be able to pay for the market price, and you also need to develop some options for those households in Canada and Quebec.
Francis Cordolino is Senior Specialist Market Insights for Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Thank you so much for your time today and your insight, Francis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
Ever wondered how your credit score could impact your ability to secure financing for your dream home? This is the Mortgage Minute. In Canada, having a good credit score is like having a VIP pass to the real estate club. The higher your score, the better it is. Picture this. A good credit score not only secures your approval, but also helps you obtain a favorable interest rate. Scores above 660 scream low risk to lenders. So, what's the magic number for a traditional mortgage? You should aim for at least 680 or higher. What can you do to improve your credit? Credit scores are calculated based on your payment history, credit utilization, credit history length, new credit requests, and a mix of credit types. Basically, it's a report card on your borrowing skills. But wait, there's more. Lenders look at your debt-to-income ratio, debt service ratios, loan amount, property purpose, and even your financial history. Don't forget about the stress test. Can your current financial situation handle potential interest rate increases? Your lender won't take your word for it. They want proof. But what if your credit is less than stellar? Does this mean you'll be stuck renting forever? Not exactly. You may still be able to obtain a mortgage, either with a higher interest rate or with a different lender. You can also increase your down payment, find someone to co-sign the loan, or wait and work to improve your credit score. Before you start looking for a house or condo, make sure you're familiar with your credit report so that you know what to expect. This has been your Mortgage Minute.
This is Under One Roof on CJD 800. I'm Robyn. That's Martin. That's LJ. That's Fred. We are with you until 1 o'clock, and we're going to be with you every Sunday at noon, right after the trivia show. A reminder, we do have a trivia question this week. In the mortgage industry, what is the prime rate commonly used for? You can text us at 514-800 if you think you know. We will tell you the answer to that question after traffic. Right now, though, let's dive into a little bit of a roundtable discussion. During news, the four of us were chatting a lot, you know? We have a lot of information.
When don't we chat a lot?
We're a chatty bunch, which is a good thing, I think, if you're going to be on the radio. But let's start with a common misconception about mortgage brokers. Maybe I'll direct this to you, Martin.
Sure.
How much do mortgage brokers charge? If you're somebody who's a first-time home buyer, should you be approaching a mortgage broker, and how much can you expect to pay?
Okay, you're going to hate my answer.
Uh-oh.
But it depends.
Okay.
Generally, we are paid by the lender. But there are exceptions where we need to charge the client. So traditional mortgages, so A, B, and C. So A are traditional, B lenders, and private. When you get to a B or a private level, so an alternative lender or a B lender, there is a charge. And when you get to a private lender, there is a charge. But on a basic, traditional, conventional mortgage, the lender pays us. So it's free of charge for you.
So it's free. So there's really no harm in just calling up a mortgage broker and finding out what your options are. At the very least, if you're thinking about buying a property, you should be calling a mortgage broker, right, Fred?
Absolutely, especially nowadays. For a lot of people, it's kind of difficult to understand the process. How much should I put down? Do I qualify? What is about the stress test? There's many different lenders out there. Why should I go to this bank or this monoline lenders? I think it's on the benefits for everyone to use a good mortgage broker, someone that you trust, someone that you knows that could work for you and help you to get home ownership.
Maybe somebody you can call by name, by first name, like Fred and Martin. Maybe that would be a good option for you at fredmartin.com.
That was too easy.
You mentioned qualification there, Fred. If we're thinking about qualifying to buy a home, it's all well and good to say, I've got the down payment saved up and I'm ready to buy a house. But, should you get pre-qualification? Should you get a pre-approval? What is the difference, LJ?
So let me just jump in and then I'm going to hand it off to LJ.
Okay.
So pre-qualification and pre-approval, documents and no documents. Pre-qualification, no documents. Pre-approval with documents. What do you think about that?
I'm going to be quite frank. A pre-qualification is completely worthless.
Oh.
Okay.
It's garbage.
So and I say it's worthless because it doesn't confirm if you're actually able to purchase a property. It doesn't confirm what your actual buying power is. Essentially, you've put in a couple numbers. You haven't really included all your debts. You haven't done any calculation as to what your actual buying power is. And the system in about 30 seconds is going to put out a price or a number more so. And you hope that that's what you can actually qualify for. When we go out and work with buyers, we need to have a firm pre-approval so that we don't get you disillusioned. You actually know what you can qualify for. You actually know what you're going to be able to purchase in this environment. And you're ready to go. We're ready to go. The sellers can take you seriously. It really makes a huge difference.
So as a real estate agent, would you prefer your clients go and see a mortgage broker before they come and see you?
So in our first meeting, always, it's the second subject we touch on. So I don't mind if you're already pre-approved or not, but before we go out to actually see properties, you're going to have a pre-approval in hand.
So you'd rather know if they can get the financing before you start all the legwork of showing them properties, making an offer, getting it accepted, and all of a sudden, I got pre-qualified, but pre-qualified doesn't mean you're pre-approved. That doesn't mean you take your pre-qualification letter to a lender and they'll go, well, I need the documents and I got to do the due diligence. This doesn't hold water.
So on that note, it's less to do with me. It has more to do if you believe you can purchase a property for $500,000 and we go out and we start seeing properties and we fall in love with the property and you want to buy this property for $500,000 and then we don't qualify all of a sudden because you weren't pre-approved, you're completely disillusioned with the entire process and ultimately you're going to blame me somehow, some way. And I want to make sure that we don't go down that negative kind of rabbit hole, if you will.
Do you have a question from a listener at 514-800 asking specifically about going to a mortgage broker to get that pre-approval, to get that process started? They're asking why you wouldn't just go to your bank directly. What's the benefit of going to a mortgage broker instead of just reaching out directly to your bank?
I'm looking at Fred. Fred, you want to jump on that one?
Okay, I'll take this one. Actually, a mortgage broker worked for you guys. I'm not saying a bank is not there for you, but as a broker, I could really look at every step. Do you have a good credit? Or if you do not qualify, we're going to put a plan in place for you to make the right step for maybe in 3 months or 6 months, you will be able to qualify. And most of the time, one of the reason we don't really do pre-qualification is it doesn't mean much. Like LG says, A pre-approval, you have no surprise. And Martin and I, we always put an emphasis to get the documents. Why? We don't want, like how'd you say, we want to give a good service to our client. We want to make sure there's no bad surprise. Like if we say to a client, you get pre-approved for 500, we back it up with your credit, your down payment, and also the qualification based on ratio, based on the stress test. It makes it at 95, 98% sure. And that's why working with a good mortgage broker, there's always a lot of benefits for clients.
And building on what Fred just said, imagine if you had to go to 10 individual lenders, how much time that would take you. So we have access to over 25 lenders. So once we've done a preliminary analysis of your file, right away, I know Fred. As soon as he has the conversation with the client, he already knows where he wants to take it. So we can take you to one of 25 or 30 different lenders, and we do all the legwork for you. So you'll save an enormous amount of time. And on top of that, we know what the lender's conditions are. And conditions are another word for documents, proof. So before you even start the mortgage or the real estate, get your documents in order.
This is Under One Roof on CJD 800. I'm Robyn. That's Martin. That's LJ. That's Fred. We are with you until 1 p.m. and we're with you every Sunday at noon.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
This is indeed Under One Roof right here on CJD 800 with you until 1 p.m. and with you every single Sunday at noon right after the trivia show. We do have our trivia question of the week. One last reminder for you before we get to the answer a little bit later. In the mortgage industry, what is the prime rate commonly used for? If you think you know the answer, you can text us at 514-800. We will give you the answer a little bit later on. But first, we wanted to highlight a property of the week right here in Montreal. And who is better suited than LJ Aguinaga from LJ Realties to highlight a property for us?
This afternoon, my team is hosting an open house from 2 to 4 p.m. at 888 Wellington Street, Unit 210. It's an incredible condo located in the Cité Multimédia, just 5 minutes from the downtown core. This beautiful 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom with interior parking and an over 390 square foot private terrace is listed for $749,000. The building just finished renovating the gym, and I love the view from the rooftop pool. You can find more information about the property on my website, ljrealties.com. And as an added bonus, Monopole, the Resto Cafe on the ground floor, is home to my favorite chocolate chip cookie in the city. Stop by for coffee or dinner and some wine.
Chocolate chip, the best chocolate chip cookie in the city?
In my opinion, honestly,
Wow.
that with a fresh coffee, it's game changer.
Wow. Well, I think I'm going to have to stop by this afternoon on my way home.
There's going to be some controversy after that statement.
Exactly. Got to bring home some chocolate chip cookies for my daughter. I have a 2-year-old at home, so she'll be very happy with that. Let's dive into the answer to our trivia question of the week. So we asked, in the mortgage industry, what is the prime rate commonly used for? Joseph did answer basically the correct answer. Why don't we, Fred, do you want to answer that question? What is the prime rate commonly used for?
Well, the prime rate is used to set the interest rate for variable loan, variable mortgage rate, and line of credit. And it's set by financial institution. Like if someone answered that question correctly.
Yeah, exactly. They said basically the prime rate is important for setting interest rates for mortgages, which is basically what you just said.
Yeah, what I could add on it is when you carry a variable rate, you carry a discounted rate from the prime rate of Canada. And normally the prime rate is set by financial institution, as I say, and the overnight rate is set by the Bank of Canada. Sometimes the people ask why the overnight rate is at 5%. And the prime rate right now is at 7.2. Usually there's always a difference of 2%, 2.2%.
Speaking of rates, I have a question. So we were talking about pre-approvals, pre-qualifications. Pre-qualifications, we're throwing them in the garbage can. I've got a garbage can right next to me. My pre-qualifications there. I'm only focused on pre-approval. Let's say you get pre-approved, but you're losing out on the bids you're putting in on houses, and it takes you a while to actually find a property. 6 months, 9 months. Let's say it takes a while. How long is that rate held for you? Is your pre-approval renewable, or do you have to start the process all over again? How does that work?
Generally, when you get pre-approved, you're good for 120 days.
Okay.
And if we get to the point where, but the pre-approval rate is slightly higher than the posted rate. LJ was nodding at me, and I was so it's slightly higher. So it protects you should mortgage rates go above that number. But if mortgage rates go below that number, we can renegotiate with the lender and get you the rate of the day. So when you do get pre-approved, the rate is held for 120 days. But if you get 119 days, we can call back the lender and get you reset those 120 days so that you're protected going forward.
There's a massive benefit to being pre-approved. I mean, we kind of mentioned it already, but I feel like as the seller of a property, if I had 3 offers and only one of them had a pre-approval, that's the offer that I'm going to be looking more seriously at, even if it's a lower offer, just because I know the sale's probably going to go through. He's already been pre-approved.
The 2 without a pre-approval are going straight in the garbage. I'll be quite frank, we're not even going to consider them, because to go through a 2-week due diligence, get everybody excited for the actual sale of a property without that confidence, it doesn't make any sense. You can write the best offer in the world, but without a pre-approval, take the day to go get pre-approved. Most institutions can do it super quickly. If you have your documents in order, take the time to do that. It's super important.
Your garbage can must be full, LJ. You're just throwing things in the trash left, right, and center. Well, I love it.
LJ is very efficient. He knows how's the market works. And honestly, just to add to what he says, of course, getting pre-approved, it's so important. And Martin and I keep saying all the time, make sure we have the document, we ask for the document, because it's a protection for us and it's protection for the client. I'll give you a quick example. Sometimes people say, like, getting pre-qualified, I make $100,000 a year. And when you look at the document, you see $80,000 a year. Oh yeah, but this year I'm on a pace of 100 because I'm going to get bonuses. Well, here's the problem. If you don't really verify the documents, you will base your pre-approval on 100K when really he makes a base salary of 80,000. When that happened, you had to make an average of the last 2 years to make sure you're using the right income to qualify. And this is just, again, one thing that we could do, but by really looking at the documents in place, it make it so good for the client. I don't remember the last time I got one of my pre-approval refused by a bank. Why? Because we did our due diligence all the time. Not looking at the credit score. It could be a mistake, because if you ask, I would say 80%, 75% of people, how's your credit? Well, it's good. It's okay. Yeah, but when the last time you look at your credit? Well, 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's maybe not okay,
Yeah, and most people aren't paying the $19.95 for Equifax Premier so that they're checking their credit on a regular basis. That's Fred. That's Martin. That's LJ. I'm Robyn. You're listening to Under One Roof on CJD 800.
On that note, over the last 15 years, I've even had a couple clients who unknowingly had a debt that was registered improperly, canceled the cell phone, but it didn't actually cancel with their provider, and that started hitting their credit. So you have a lot of people who have historically good credit, but unfortunately one blemish due to a mistaken communication, due to co-signing a loan for a family member that didn't end up getting paid on time regularly, leads to issues on your credit. So part of the pre-approval process is to give us some time to correct any potential small blemishes that are a simple fix. It might be a simple $500 outstanding bill with your cell phone provider that you can close that off, and all of a sudden within 30-60 days we're going to see a shift in your credit, 90 days max roughly. So it's really just to prepare the file so that we don't put any stoppers when the time actually comes to buy that property.
In all honesty, we could do an entire show just on documents. It's mind-boggling what I receive often. I get a picture, I see the person's tablecloth. The tablecloth takes up more room than the actual document. The document is all rippled, that you can hardly read it. And as soon as we try to submit that, it's going to be bounced. So get your documents in order.
There's also no need for that. Like, if you have a smartphone, there are PDF apps that you can download that will scan the document for you. I know not everybody has like a fancy schmancy printer, fax, scanner combo, but if you have a smartphone, you can do a lot of it. Or if you go to Bureau and Grill or whatever, they can scan stuff for you. And
it's mind-boggling in 2023 that we're still dealing with paper documents. Paper. People show up with an envelope, a file folder with about 500 pages worth of documents, and we sit there and we have to scan them one at a time. In 2023, you'd think that the electronic world would have taken over.
Well, even just like your T4s, your Relevé 1 that you receive every year, if it's from an employer you're no longer with, they're mailing them to your house. You've got these old school paper documents. I still have a filing cabinet in my office where I keep everything organized. So a lot of people are still dealing with hard copies, especially if it's government documents.
Yeah, I could add to that. The mortgage industry, it's a bit archaic on certain points, like.
We're creatures of
sometimes,
habit, though. Right, we're creatures of habit. A lot of time, people have been collecting these documents for years and years and years, and the reality is to shift. Not everybody is using a drive or a Dropbox or whatever to keep everything stored. So we'll offer most clients, hey, if you have everything ready to go, we'll go pick it up, we'll scan it, we'll bring it back to you, and we'll bring it to the next step. Because a lot of time, it's just those small blockers that don't get us to that next step to really start the process, if you will.
Because a lot of people don't realize that when you actually get an accepted offer, there's a window. And that window is sometimes 10 to 14 days. And if you don't have your documents and we can't get you final funding, then you may lose that property.
Guys, this has gone by so fast. I can't believe
it's
it's
craziness.
already 1 o'clock. That's pretty much it for us this week. A reminder that Under One Roof MTL will be heard live every Sunday at noon right here on CJD 800. If you have questions, anything relating to housing, mortgage, rent, real estate, whatever, you can send it to info@underoneroofmtl.com. And if you want, you can even send us voice memos. Then we can actually play your question on the air. Make sure you include your name so we know who we're hearing from. In the meantime, you can reach LJ, Fred, and Martin individually. LJ, where can people find you?
My website's a great place to start, ljrealties.com. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. My handle is LJ Aguinaga. Or for more info on our listings and real estate team, under the handle LJ Realties. You can also call or text me at 514-500-4040.
All right, Fred and Martin, where can people find you?
We're going to keep it simple. FredMartin.com.
Oh, that's so easy to remember.
FredMartin.com.
Love
That's
it. Love
All
it.
the information is there.
Fantastic. To learn more about the show, the team, sending us your questions, we will have a website up and running this week, underoneroofmtl.com. So just check every day. Just keep going there. Check it out. It'll be up. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yes, Martin.
And this show is for you. It's not for us. It's for you.
Absolutely.
So comments, feedback, questions, we'll tackle everything that you want to know.
If you missed anything, you can listen to the show in its entirety on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, I'm Robyn Flynn. This has been Under One Roof MTL, demystifying home ownership 1 episode at a time.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.